You never really know who's watching your kindness, or how far one small act can ripple, because for 12-year-old Eli Parker, that ripple started with a peanut butter sandwich every day after school. Eli walked home through the same quiet streets of Willow Creek, a small American town where everyone knew everyone, but at the corner of 5th and Maple, he always passed a man sitting under the same old oak tree, torn jacket, faded hat, cardboard sign that read, "Just hungry," while most people turned their heads and walked past. Eli didn't. He was just a kid, poor himself, living with his single mom, Lisa, who worked double shifts at the diner. But even on days when they barely had enough, Eli still found a way to share his lunch. A sandwich, an apple, a juice box. He gave it without thinking twice. Every single day. What Eli didn't know was that the man under that tree, Sam, as he called him, wasn't actually homeless. He was a millionaire, a hidden philanthropist, testing something most people never think about: human kindness when no one's watching. And the day Eli's doorbell finally rang, everything he thought he knew about life, love, and giving changed forever. Would you still give if you knew there was nothing in it for you? That's what this story is really about. Willow Creek looked like one of those postcard towns. Cozy, quiet, with a gas station, a diner, and a main street that shut down by 9. Eli lived in a small, run-down duplex on the edge of town, peeling paint. A porch that creaked when you walked. But it was home. His mom, Lisa Parker, was doing her best. A waitress with tired eyes and a soft smile that hid how exhausted she really was. They didn't have much. But she always told him, "We might not have money, Eli, but we can still have kindness." And maybe that's why Eli noticed the man on the corner before anyone else did. It started one cold November afternoon. Eli was walking home from school, his backpack heavy, stomach rumbling. That's when he saw him. The man sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk, a cardboard sign next to his boots. "Just hungry." Eli paused. Everyone else walked by, heads down, pretending not to see. But something in the man's eyes caught him. They weren't desperate, just tired, sad, but not broken. Eli reached into his bag, pulled out his lunch, a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich and a banana. He hesitated for a second, then said softly, "You can have mine. I'm not that hungry." The man looked up, surprised, then smiled. "Thank you, kid. What's your name?" "Eli, Eli," he repeated, like it meant something. "I'm Sam." From that day on, it became their ritual. Every afternoon, Eli would drop by with something small, a sandwich, a leftover slice of pie from the diner, sometimes just an apple. Sam would thank him, tell him stories from his past life, and ask how school was going. Eli loved those talks. Sam wasn't like other adults. He actually listened. Sometimes he'd say things like, "The kindest hearts often come from the emptiest pockets," and Eli didn't understand it then. But he never forgot it. Lisa eventually noticed the missing lunches and asked one night, "Eli, honey, are you giving away your food again?" "Yeah, just to someone who needs it more." She sighed, smiled tiredly, and said, "That's my boy." What Eli didn't know was that Sam wasn't just any man on the corner. Every day he sat there, not because he had to, but because he chose to. His real name was Samuel Reynolds, a retired CEO who'd lost his wife years ago. He'd stepped away from everything, the company, the mansion, the money, because he wanted to understand the heart of people again. And the day he met Eli Parker, a boy with nothing who still gave everything, Samuel's life took a turn he never saw coming. If you saw someone sitting on a street corner every day, would you stop? Or would you walk past like everyone else? Be honest.
Hey there, my wonderful family and friends. Welcome back. If you're ready to dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love seeing where everyone's watching. And guess what? There's another amazing story coming your way tomorrow. One you definitely don't want to miss. Alright then, let's get started.
Weeks turned into months, and that simple act of kindness became part of Eli's life. Like brushing his teeth or saying goodnight to his mom. Every day, he'd see Sam sitting under that same oak tree. Rain or shine, Sometimes Sam would be scribbling in a small notebook, other times just watching the world go by, like he was waiting for something or someone. Eli didn't really understand why he kept going back. Maybe it was because Sam listened. Maybe it was because talking to him felt different, like being seen for the first time. They talked about everything: school, life, dreams. One day, Eli told Sam, "I want to be someone important when I grow up, not rich, but someone people remember." Sam smiled quietly. The world doesn't remember people for their money, Eli. It remembers them for what they gave. That line stuck with him. But not everyone understood. Kids at school started whispering about him. They called him the homeless whisperer, or worse, one even said, "Dude, you know those guys pretend to be homeless, right? You're wasting your time." Eli just shrugged it off. He didn't care what they said, because every time he handed Sam that brown paper bag, he felt right. Meanwhile, his mom, Lisa, was worried. Bills were piling up. She'd lost one of her shifts at the diner, and their landlord had started leaving notes on the door. One night, she sat Eli down at the table. Her hands trembled around a cup of coffee. "Eli, I know your heart's big, but we're barely getting by, honey. You can't keep giving your lunch away. You need that food." Eli lowered his head. "But, Mom, he needs it more than me." "I know, baby, I do. But love won't fill your stomach." She didn't mean it to sound harsh, but it hit him. For the first time, he felt torn between being kind and being responsible. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he whispered, "I'm sorry, Sam." He promised himself he'd take a break from giving lunches. Just for a few days. The next afternoon, he walked home on the opposite side of the street. He told himself not to look, but he couldn't help it. There Sam was, same spot, same smile, waving gently at Eli. Eli's chest tightened. He waved back awkwardly, then hurried off. That night, he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned until he finally decided, "Okay, tomorrow, just one more lunch." Eli packs his lunch carefully, a sandwich, a cookie, and a note that says, "Have a good day, Sam." He walks to school, half excited, half guilty, but when he reaches the oak tree, Sam isn't there. The spot is empty. The cardboard sign leans against the tree, but Sam's gone. Eli waits for 10 minutes, 15, then an hour, nothing. Finally, he places the bag down and whispers, "Where'd you go, Sam?" He walks home, heart heavy. Days turn into weeks, still no sign of Sam. Eli starts to think maybe Sam moved on. Or worse, one afternoon, he asks around the neighborhood. Nobody's seen him. One man says, "That guy? I think I saw him get into a fancy black car one day. Guess he wasn't so poor after all." Eli freezes. "What do you mean?" "He was talking to some dude in a suit. Looked like a business meeting, not a handout." Eli walks home confused. A car? A suit? None of it made sense. Why would a homeless man have that kind of connection? Eli couldn't explain it, but something about Sam's disappearance felt unfinished. Sometimes, when he passed the oak tree, he'd still leave a small piece of his lunch, just in case. He didn't know it yet. But the reason Sam disappeared would become one of the biggest twists of his life. And it all started with that one note that said, "Have a good day, Sam." Months later, on Eli's 13th birthday, a letter showed up in their mailbox. No return address, no name. Just one line on the envelope, "For Eli Parker." From a friend. Lisa opened it first, then called him over. Inside was a $10,000 check, and a handwritten note that read, "Thank you for feeding me when the world turned away. Your kindness changed more than you know. S.R." Eli's hands shook. "Mom?" Sam's initials. Lisa stared at the check, speechless. "Honey, who was this man?" Eli just whispered, "Someone who saw me. If you found out the person you helped every day wasn't who they seemed, would you feel betrayed or grateful? Comment what you'd do if it happened to you." It had been almost a year since Sam vanished. The note and the check were all that remained, tucked neatly in a showbox under Eli's bed. He never cashed the money. To him, it wasn't about the cash, it was about the mystery. Who was Sam really? And why would a man who looked homeless write a $10 000 check. Life went on. Eli was now a freshman in high school, taller, older, but still carrying the same heart that used to hand out sandwiches every morning. He'd tell his mom sometimes, "If I ever see him again, I just want to ask, why me?" Lisa would smile, ruffle his hair, and say, "Maybe because the world needs more people like you, Eli." It was a cool autumn afternoon when the doorbell rang. Eli opened it to see a delivery driver holding a sleek black envelope, "Delivery for Eli Parker." He signed for it, confused. The envelope had no return address. Again, he tore it open and froze. Inside was a printed invitation. "You're cordially invited to the annual Humankind Gala. Location, Grand Oaks Hotel. Date, October 18th. Time, 7 p.m. Dress code, formal." At the bottom, written in gold ink, was a single note, "Some gifts come back home. Sr." Eli's heart dropped. "Mom, it's him." Lisa didn't know what to make of it. "Honey, that's a fancy event. Why would some rich people invite us?" "Because Sam isn't who we thought he was." He could feel it in his gut. Lisa rented a simple suit for Eli. He kept tugging at the collar, nervous but determined. When they walked into the Grand Oaks Hotel, their jaws dropped. Chandeliers sparkled, cameras flashed, and men in tuxedos mingled with women in gowns. Eli felt completely out of place. A hostess smiled at them. "Welcome, Mr. Parker. Right this way." They were guided to a round table near the stage. On it was a card with his name, Eli Parker, honored guest. Lisa whispered, "Honored guest." "Eli, what's going on?" Before he could answer, the lights dimmed, a spotlight hit the stage. A man in his 40s stepped up to the microphone, tall, clean-cut, wearing a dark blue suit. Eli's breath caught in his throat, the voice, the smile. It was him, it was Sam. But this wasn't the scruffy man in tattered clothes sitting under the oak tree. This was someone else, confident, composed, radiating success. He began to speak. "A year ago, I decided to study something money can't buy. Kindness." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I disguised myself as a homeless man in different cities across the country. I wanted to see who would help, who would walk away, and who would judge." Cameras flashed. People leaned forward. Most walked by, some threw insults, but one boy, a boy from a small town called Ridgeway, fed me every single day, even when he had nothing. Eli's hands started to shake. "That boy is here tonight." The spotlight swung from the stage and landed on Eli. The crowd turned, applause erupted. Lisa covered her mouth in shock. Sam smiled directly at Eli. "Eli Parker, you taught me what humanity really means. You reminded me that goodness still exists, even in the smallest acts." Eli stood frozen. He could barely breathe. This man, this millionaire, had been testing kindness, and Eli had passed. The audience rose to their feet. Some clapped, others wiped tears, but Eli didn't feel proud. He felt conflicted. Because deep down, part of him wondered, did I help him because I cared, or because I thought he was helpless? That question would haunt him long after the applause faded. After the event, Sam, whose real name was Samuel Rourke, CEO of Rourke Foundation, invited Eli and Lisa backstage. Samuel extended his hand. "I owe you more than you'll ever know." Eli hesitated, then shook it. "Why me?" Samuel smiled. "Because when the world ignored me, you didn't ask who I was, you just gave. And that's rarer than gold." Samuel pulled out a document and slid it across the table. "I've set up a full scholarship in your name. Eli, you're going to college, wherever you want, paid in full." Lisa gasped. Eli's eyes widened. "You mean me? But why?" Samuel leaned back. "I soft, because the world needs men like you leading it." For the first time in his life, Eli felt seen. Not as a poor kid, not as someone struggling, but as someone who mattered. But as he and his mom left the gala that night, walking out under the soft rain, a question still lingered in his heart. Why did he disappear for so long? Because behind Samuel Rourke's polished smile, there was something he wasn't saying. And what Eli didn't know yet was that the biggest secret was still waiting for him, closer to home than he could ever imagine. If you discovered the homeless person you helped was actually a millionaire, What would you say to them first? Would you be angry, or would you thank them? Let's see your thoughts in the comments. The days after the gala felt like a dream. Eli and Lisa had gone back to their small house. But something had shifted. The walls didn't feel so tight anymore. The air didn't feel so heavy. There was hope, and for the first time, the future didn't look impossible. Lisa sat by the window, sipping coffee. You still thinking about him? She asked. Eli nodded, eyes distant. Yeah, I just don't get it. Why do all that? The disguise, the mystery, the test? Lisa smiled softly. Maybe he was lonely. Sometimes people with everything are searching for something money can't give. Eli thought about that for a long time. A week later, Samuel invited them to his home, a sprawling estate on the edge of the city. The gates opened slowly, revealing a grand white mansion surrounded by gardens that seemed too perfect to be real. Samuel greeted them at the entrance. He wasn't wearing a suit this time, just a sweater and jeans, looking more human than the man on stage that night. Come in, he said warmly. I want to show you something. He led them into a vast hallway filled with framed photographs, but not of awards or celebrities. These were pictures of people, ordinary people. A woman handing food to a stranger, a teenager fixing an old man's car for free, a little girl sharing her umbrella with another kid in the rain. These are the people who changed me, Samuel said. I've been collecting these stories for years. The small moments of kindness the world never sees. Lisa smiled. That's beautiful. But Eli noticed something. At the end of the hallway was one photo covered by a dark cloth. What's that one? He asked. Samuel hesitated. That is the one I still can't look at. He slowly pulled off the cloth. Behind it was an old photograph, faded, torn around the edges, of a young boy sitting beside a woman in a diner booth. The boy looked about 8. The woman was unmistakably Lisa. The room went silent. Lisa's coffee cup slipped from her hands, shattering on the marble floor. Oh my God! Eli turned to her, confused. Mom? What is this? Samuel's voice was low. That's me, Eli. Your mother and I met many years ago. I wasn't a millionaire then. I was just a kid living out of my car. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I used to work at that diner. He came in one night, cold, starving, scared. I gave him a free meal every night after that. He'd show up just to talk. Eli's heart pounded. You mean, you knew him? Samuel nodded. Your mom was the first person who ever showed me kindness. She's the reason I built my foundation. Lisa covered her face. Try not to cry. I didn't even recognize you when Eli brought your name up. You were just a lost kid back then. Samuel smiled softly, eyes misty. You saved me. And when I saw Eli giving that sandwich under the oak tree, I knew kindness runs in your family. Eli's whole world tilted. The man he'd helped wasn't just testing him. He was repaying something that began decades ago, a debt of kindness that had come full circle. Samuel stepped closer, his voice breaking slightly. Lisa, I never got to thank you properly. You didn't just feed me, you gave me purpose. I spent my life building something that could give others the same hope you gave me. Lisa reached out, squeezing his hand. You already thanked me, Sam. Through my son, tears shimmered in both their eyes. Later that evening, Samuel took Eli for a walk through his garden. The sun was setting, golden light spilling over the roses. You know, Eli, Samuel said, life has a strange way of paying back what you give. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes generations. But it always finds its way home. Eli looked up at him. So you were never homeless? Samuel shook his head. Not in the way you think. But I was searching for something real. I wanted to understand if kindness still existed in a world obsessed with taking. He paused, looking at Eli with genuine pride. You proved to me that it does. They stood in silence for a while. Just the sound of the wind and the soft hum of the city beyond the trees. Eli finally said, You know, I used to think helping people only mattered if you had something big to give. But now I see it's the small things that change everything. Samuel smiled. Exactly. You don't need millions. You just need heart. Images flash by. Eli handing a sandwich to Sam. Lisa serving a young Samuel at the diner, Samuel watching from afar as Eli grows up. 3 lives woven together by acts of quiet compassion. Sometimes the simplest kindness outlives us. Sometimes it's a legacy passed down from one heart to another. Do you believe kindness always finds its way back? Have you ever done something small that changed someone's life? Or had someone's kindness change yours? Share your story in the comments. The days after their visit to Samuel's mansion felt surreal. Eli couldn't shake the weight of what he'd learned. That his mother's small act of kindness decades ago had changed the course of another man's life. Now that same man had come back into theirs. Like fate tying a bow on an old, unfinished story. One morning, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Just Eli's name in elegant handwriting. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a house key. Eli, I'd like to see you one more time. There's something I need to show you. Come alone. Samuel brooksily looked at his mom. Uncertain, Lisa frowned but nodded. Go. If he's reaching out again, it must be important. Samuel's mansion was quiet this time. The front doors were open, the lights dim. Eli stepped inside and called out, Mr. Brooks? No answer then. He saw him, sitting by the grand piano in the living room, staring out the window. He looked weaker, older somehow, as if a decade had passed in a week. Hey, Eli said softly. You okay? Samuel turned and smiled faintly. Sit down, Eli. I don't have much time, and there's something I need you to know before I go. Eli frowned. What do you mean, before you go? Samuel took a slow breath. I've been sick for a while. Cancer. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want pity. I just wanted to finish what I started. Eli froze. No, you can't be serious. Samuel smiled sadly. Death doesn't scare me anymore. You know why? Because I finally understand what life's really about. And that's thanks to your mother. And to you. He stood up slowly, walking over to a painting on the wall. It showed a young boy holding his mother's hand under a streetlight. That's you and Lisa, he said. I painted it myself. I started it years ago when I found her again, but didn't have the courage to reach out. Eli stared, overwhelmed. Why me, though? Out of everyone in the world, why did you choose me? Samuel's eyes softened. Because you're not just her son. Eli, silence. What do you mean? Eli asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Samuel's gaze dropped to the floor. When your mother helped me all those years ago, we got close. She probably never told you. But before she met your father, she and I, he paused, the words heavy. Eli, I'm your father. The world stopped. Eli's knees went weak. No, that can't be. My dad. Samuel shook his head gently. The man you knew as your father came after. Lisa was protecting you from a man she thought was lost. And she wasn't wrong. I was lost. I ran from everything. From her. From myself. I thought money could make me whole. He took a deep breath. But when I saw you feeding me under that oak tree, I knew exactly who you were. I just couldn't say it. Not until I'd earned the right to. Tears filled Eli's eyes. He couldn't speak. Samuel placed a hand on his shoulder. You have her heart, Eli. That same fire. That same kindness. It's the best thing I ever left in this world. He pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it over. Open this after I'm gone. Eli shook his head. Stop talking like that. You're not dying. Samuel smiled faintly. We all do, son. But some of us get lucky enough to leave something that lasts. 2 weeks later, Samuel Brooks passed away peacefully in his sleep. The news made national headlines. Philanthropist and billionaire Samuel Brooks dies at 64. But what the world didn't know was the private goodbye that had already taken place. Eli stood by the graveside, clutching the envelope his father had given him. Lisa stood beside him, tears quietly rolling down her cheeks. I never wanted you to find out like this, she whispered. Eli squeezed her hand. He did what he thought was right. He opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter and a legal document. Eli, if you're reading this, I'm gone, but you're not alone. The mansion, the foundation, everything I built, it's yours now, not because you're my son, but because you've proven to the world that kindness still exists. Take it, Build something that helps others like your mother helped me. Make it matter, Dad. Tears blurred the words. Eli folded the letter and slipped it into his pocket, his heart breaking and healing all at once. Lisa rested her head on his shoulder. He did love you, she whispered. In his own way, Eli nodded. And I think I finally love him back. Months later, the Brooks Foundation for Human Kindness opened in the heart of the city. It provided meals, shelter, and scholarships for struggling families. At the entrance, a bronze plaque read, "In memory of Samuel Brooks, a man who learned that true wealth begins with kindness." Eli stood before it on opening day, hands in his pockets, looking up at the sky. The wind blew softly through the trees, and for a moment, he swore he could hear Samuel's voice. "You did good, son," he smiled through the tears. "Thanks, Dad, you too." That night, Eli sat on the same park bench where it all began. The city lights shimmered in the distance. He pulled out a sandwich from his backpack and set it down beside him, just in case someone hungry passed by. And as he sat there, he realized something powerful. Sometimes, the smallest acts echo the loudest. Sometimes, the circle of kindness never really ends. Do you believe people can truly change, even after years of chasing the wrong things? Have you ever experienced a moment where someone's kindness came full circle back to you? Share your thoughts below. Your story might inspire someone tonight.
Thank you for watching all the way through. If this story moved you, the next one will surprise you in ways you won't expect. Go ahead and click the video on your screen. Your next story awaits.